Joe Orton was born in Leicester in 1933 into a working-class family, but it was here in the West End that he made his name. He wrote some of the modern era's most controversial and challenging plays, including Entertaining Mr. Sloane, What the Butler Saw and Loot. But the road from the council estate to the West End would be a bumpy one.
Orton had a fascination with the theatre and writing from an early age and was actively involved in amateur dramatics. In 1951, he won a scholarship to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London. It was during this time at RADA that he met his long-term partner, Kenneth Halliwell.
The pair were both aspiring writers, but never really had a great deal of success, and Orton had a few failed novels. They both took menial jobs for 6 months of the year to fund their lives so that they could return to their typewriters to write for the rest of the year. But it wasn't their writing that first brought them to the attention of the public. It was a prolonged and elaborate practical joke. I'm leaving Theatreland to head to North London to the local history museum in Islington, and I'm here to meet manager Mark Aston. Mark, pleased to meet you.
Hello, Paul. Likewise.
Thanks for talking to me
Not
today.
at all.
What was the practical joke all about? What exactly did they do?
Well, Joe Orton and Kenneth Halliwell would go to their local libraries. They would steal library books, take them back to their flat in Knowle Road, and start doctoring the covers by adding alternative images and narrative, a bit of text as well, occasionally changing the dust jacket blurb. They would then sneak the library books back onto the library shelves from those same libraries and just to wait for drama to unfold.
Let's look at the original of John Betjeman, and I'm a big fan of John Betjeman.
Okay, I think the full effect, obviously, of the covers, the collage, is to see the originals. And here we have a facsimile of the original cover, which is a very basic cover showing Betjeman there in a boater. However...
Do you know, when you look at that, I mean, that's so typical Betjeman, really. But
you remember.
That puts a smile on your face.
It certainly does. Look at that.
And we've got here the Collins Guide to Roses, lots of wonderful, pretty roses.
Very simple cover, an English rose, what could be more sort of institutional. But to cause a little bit of havoc, a simple monkey pasted on the rose, put back onto the shelf.
How long did this go on for?
This went on for 2.5 years, from 1959 to sort of mid-1962.
How many books in total, do you think?
We believe they doctored hundreds of books, as well as cutting out pictures to wallpaper their flat wall with.
Now that Orton obviously is well known, you know, a very, very famous playwright, these are quite rare. I mean, there's a lot of value attached to these now, surely.
There is a lot of value attached. We only have 42 originals. They are priceless because they're irreplaceable.
Well, thank you very much for talking to me today.
You're very welcome, Paul.
This is Essex Road Library in North London, and it's the scene of the crime. Orton and Halliwell would come here and replace their defaced books on the shelves and sit and wait until an unsuspecting member of the public picked them up. Like all practical jokers, they wanted to see the results of their work.
A lot of the staff here at the library used to look forward to their latest creations, but not everyone saw the funny side. In fact, a lot of the changes that Orton and Halliwell made were pretty racy, especially for the 1950s, early 1960s.
This may have been a bit of fun for Orton and Halliwell, but for many it was hugely shocking and blatant vandalism.
This was an attack on our books. Our book stock, of which we were very proud, was being attacked by predators.
The authorities took defacing public property very seriously, and the joke drastically backfired.
And eventually, in 1962, they were caught, and both men were sentenced to 6 months imprisonment for malicious damage. One person who knew Joe Orton and Kenneth Halliwell back then was their next-door neighbour, Eleanor Salvoni, and she still lives here today.
I always called them the boys next door. I remember quite a lot, you know. My son-in-law, he said, Mum, he said, what they've done is unbelievable. I said, why, what have they done? He said, they've defaced the library books. The boys were really mischievous. I mean, they used to banter off each other. And then Ken would say, oh, Joe, now behave yourself. I said, yes, about time you behaved yourself after what you've been up to.
And Eleanor clearly remembers the day they were arrested.
I found out by coming out of the door to go shopping, and Mrs. Gordon was seeing to her flowers. And she said, Eleanor, isn't it disgraceful? I said, what? The boys have been arrested? I said, what do you mean they've been arrested? She said, they've defaced the library books. Didn't you see the blue van? I said, no, Louis saw the blue van, and I said I didn't have time to come to the window because I was busy cooking.
Orton's time alone in prison allowed him to find his style as a writer. He later described his spell inside as his most formative. And after his release, he had a new lease of life. And over the next few years, he went from a struggling writer to become the toast of the West End.
In 1960s Britain, the working classes were on the rise, and that suited Orton's background, his writing style and his dislike for the middle classes. The timing was absolutely perfect, and his first play was a huge success, entertaining Mr. Sloane, and that continued for his second play, Loot, which won the London Evening Standard Theatre Award.
Orton's career as a playwright and celebrity continued to grow, but his partner, Kenneth Halliwell, found his fame difficult to cope with, and there was an increasing distance between them. Their relationship ended tragically.
In August 1967, Halliwell, suffering from depression, murdered Joe Orton before taking his own life in that flat just there. He was only 34 years old. In a few short years, Orton wrote some of the most important plays of the last century, tackling and challenging social issues of the day, themes that had never been put on stage before. He was truly pioneering.